Love is simply the name for the desire and the pursuit of the whole. Plato, The Symposium. Unfortunately, becoming whole is impossible. In this video, we will see why it's impossible by psychoanalyzing the half of it directed by Alice Wu. We will look through the lens of psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan with commentary from Slavoj Zizek and Esther Perel. I am by no means an expert at this. In fact, I am just starting to understand everything, so I will explain what I know in the most basic understandable terms. We will see how the search for your soulmate / becoming whole never ends, and what we can do about that in our own relationships. Before we go on, if you could please like this video. We make these film or relationship advice videos once a week, and a like would help us tremendously. Naturally, this is going to be a long video, but please stick with it. There is so much interesting information to learn here. I guarantee you will walk away with something new. The story opens up with Ellie staring at Esther from afar. We can infer that maybe Ellie thinks she's her soulmate or just has a crush on her. She's then hired to write love letters for Paul to Esther. She doesn't want to because why would she write a love letter to her own crush for somebody else? But she needs the money to support her father.
好了，明天我来打。
Thus starts the adventure of Paul and Ellie trying to win the love of Esther. We will see why that adventure is the whole point of the movie. Love is simply the name for the desire and the pursuit of the whole. Then Ellie and Paul are trying to feel whole. Have you ever been in your room at night, maybe sat on the edge of your bed and thought, what am I missing? Nobody understands me. There's got to be more than this. Maybe we all feel that way because we're not whole. Maybe there's something missing within us. Everybody thinks it, everybody feels it, including quarterback of the New England Patriots, Tom Brady.
Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there's something greater out there for me? I mean, maybe a lot of people would say, hey man, this is what it is. I reached my goal, my dream, my life is me. I thank God, it's gotta be more than this.
Some people think wealth will make you whole. Well, Tom has a lot of that. So money doesn't make him feel whole. What about love? The girl of your dreams. At the time, Tom was dating Bridget Moynihan, a very beautiful model, and now he's married to Giselle Bundchen. He's definitely not lacking in that department, so not a person. But what about achievements? Success. At the time of the interview, he had just won his 3rd Super Bowl at 27 years old. To put things into perspective, LeBron James is 34 and he's won 3 NBA championships. Meryl Streep, who's been acting for a very long time, has only 3 Oscars. I know those playing fields aren't exactly the same, they're just examples to show that he's achieved massive success at a very young age, so he's not lacking in any success. So he has the money, the fame, the love, and the success. Yet, just like the thoughts we have in our own heads before we go to bed, he still says to himself,
me, I thank God, it's gotta be more than this.
And we spend a lot of our lives trying to fill that gap, to make ourselves whole, just like the story in the beginning of the half of it.
Leaving our split selves to wander the earth in misery, forever longing for the other half of our soul.
That's exactly what Paul's trying to do. He loves Esther, so he's trying to become whole with her. But from what we've seen so far, becoming whole isn't exactly that easy. Tom Brady still hasn't managed it. Psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan calls this jouissance, the perpetual cycle of yearning for more, getting it, not feeling satisfied, so then yearning for that next thing. It's why people continue trying to win NBA titles after winning 3, or climbing the corporate ladder, or having lots of sexual partners. How come everyone feels this way? Where does it come from? Lacan argues it originates when we are babies. When we are babies, we usually have a mother that shows us unconditional love, but then she has to leave and do stuff because she has a life. So when the mother is gone, the baby is all upset because they need love. But then she comes back and things are alright. But then she leaves again and goes to dad. So the baby realizes there's something that the dad has that they don't have. But the dad doesn't have anything in particular. The mom just has to leave because she's living her own life. But the baby pictures the dad having some imaginary object that makes it so the mom likes the dad more. So if only the baby could get that object, they wouldn't have to be alone. They would be whole. So as we grow up, we don't necessarily search for this love in our mother, but in other things. Sports, friends, significant others. We want to stop that feeling of we're not enough. So if we just get that thing, or do that thing, we'll feel whole. But explained before, we never do feel whole. Lacan calls that something, the impossible object, objet, or object of desire. If you're thinking, well, that doesn't apply to me, here are some examples of objet that you might identify with. If you've ever finished a Coke can, you might think to yourself, I wish I had more. But you don't have more because there's a set amount of Coke in that can. So the limit is the Coke can, the thing which is inhibiting you from having more enjoyment. And the objet A, the impossible object, is a never-ending source of Coke. But we realize that the limit, which is the Coke can, is actually the thing that allows us to enjoy the Coke. For example, what if you had access to a whole swimming pool full of Coke? Would you grab a cup and help yourself? No, that's gross. So we realize that once we get the objet A, which is unlimited Coke, we actually aren't that satisfied. So it's the can that allows us to enjoy the Coke by placing a limit on it. Here's another example.
iPhone 11 Pro.
You've waited so long for it, and now you're finally going to buy it. Yay, you've got it! And when you're holding it in your hands, you realize your life doesn't really feel that different. It's a great phone and everything, but maybe you were expecting it to satisfy you a little bit more. If only it was a little bit faster, or thinner, or have a better battery, you would feel better. But because it is what it is, what do you do to feel better? You hold on to the box. Because the phone doesn't make you feel all that great, so maybe if you held onto the box, it would. Admit it, we've all done it, including myself. I'm sure your box is somewhere in your house stuck in a drawer. There's even a whole subreddit dedicated to Apple boxes. In this scenario, the limit is the iPhone because it's not all that great. And the objet A, the impossible object, is the box. You think maybe if I held onto the box, somehow this iPhone would be so much better. But that's ridiculous. It's literally a box that does nothing. I know it's a tough concept to understand. Here is one last example. Listen to what psychoanalyst Slavoj Zizek has to say about objet A.
Voluptuous elder lady, I don't know, maybe she was flirting with me. She told me that basically her point was I'm still beautiful and sexually attractive in spite of, and she told me how her last lover, when she saw her naked, told her that if she just were to lose 2 or 3 kilos, her body would have been perfect. And I told her, just don't lose 2 or 3 kilos. Because, you often find this paradox that, like, 2 or 3 kilos less and you would be perfect. But this ideal of perfection only arises when you do have 2 or 3 kilos too much. You see my point? You take away the obstacle, the small element which seems to disturb the perfection, and you lose this potential virtual perfection itself. This is the paradox Lacan is aiming at.
So according to Slavoj Zizek and Jacques Lacan, all human beings are split, because they are split from what makes them whole. Now back to the half of it. What happens when 2 or even 3 split individuals come together? And that's what this whole movie examines. Ellie likes Esther, Paul loves Esther. Who does Esther like? Certainly not this guy.
You're in love with me.
Yes, Trig. I am in love with you.
I get it.
If Lacan's theory is true, then we're essentially destined to never feel satisfied or whole. If Paul or Ellie were to start a relationship with Esther, their lives wouldn't change that much. For example, there are so many couples who are soulmates or are in love, yet they still do things to search for satisfaction. If they were truly satisfied with each other, they wouldn't resort to things like alcoholism or cheating. When you ultimately get your objet A, your impossible object, you are left unsatisfied. Some of you might be familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, entrepreneur, speaker, and author. He has the goal of buying the New York Jets. Listen to what he says about that on the Joe Rogan podcast.
So I want to buy the New York Jets. Let's take a step back.
Okay, you do?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Whoa.
And I'm going to. Actually, buying the Jets is going to be the worst day of my life.
Because then you're going to need a new mountain to climb.
Yeah.
So if buying the New York Jets is the worst day of his life, then what's the point?
Listen carefully. I want to buy the New York Jets, but when I clarify it to everybody, I want the process of trying to buy the New York Jets more than buying the New York Jets. Understand?
The whole point is the process. Now this brings us back to the beginning quote. Love is simply the name for the desire and the pursuit of the whole. This quote says nothing about becoming whole or finding your second half. It's all about the desire and the pursuit of it. That's why the whole movie is Ellie and Paul pursuing Esther. We never really see them successfully get her, because that's the whole point. It's the desire and the pursuit. That's why Gary Vee says,
the quest to buy the Jets is my happiness.
Not owning the Jets, but the quest for the Jets. And from what we've learned from Lacan, desire is never satisfied, or else it wouldn't be called desire. If it was satisfied, you would stop wanting things. But we always want things. Instead of being quenched, desire snowballs. Maybe this will be the next thing that makes me happy. Maybe this will. Maybe this will. And it might seem sad that we can never fully feel satisfied. That's just how it is. And that's why we fall in love with the process. Thus, the quote says, "Love is simply the name for the desire and the pursuit." Therefore, Coke comes in cans, because without a can, we wouldn't want it. The act of just desiring more Coke is the peak of satisfaction. That's why the can is important. And iPhones are inherently flawed, because if they were perfect, we still would be unsatisfied with it. If our spouse lost 3 pounds, we would then ask them to get a lip injection or something else. Ellie hits home with his philosophy with this line at the end of the movie.
Love isn't patient and kind and humble. Love it's not finding your perfect half. It's the trying and reaching and failing.
So if you're pursuing someone and you're not quite there yet, take a deep breath, fall in love with the process. If the process isn't worth it, then stop pursuing them. And if you're in a relationship and you're not 100% satisfied, understand that you probably won't ever be. That doesn't mean to stay in a relationship if your partner is abusive or really bad to you. Please leave if that's the case. This also doesn't mean to give up or stop trying in the relationship. Psychotherapist Esther Perel says it best when finding a soulmate.
Every couple has issues. The only question is which are the issues you want to deal with. You pick this person, you'll deal with those issues. You pick that person, you'll deal with other issues.
And that explains the second quote we see in the movie. In love, one always starts by deceiving oneself and ends by deceiving others. That is what the world calls a romance. We deceive ourselves by thinking we can become whole, which we can't. Then we deceive others by showing them two seemingly whole human beings, which is false, because we are never fully satisfied. So not being fully satisfied just means that everything that you share with them, every moment, every fight, every ping pong match, every sausage taco you share, that is all you have. Nothing more, nothing less. So be grateful for that and recognize what it is for the beauty that it is. And that's a psychoanalysis of the half of it, directed by Alice Wu. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. I know there's a lot of information to digest, from love to psychoanalysis to this movie, and you did very, very well. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing, and if you have a story that this reminds you of, please email us at filmlovestories@gmail.com. Do you agree or disagree? Let us know in the comments, and we will see you in the next one.